I still remember the first email I drafted for her wedding. Subject line, vendors to contact by Friday. I signed it off like I always did. Love, Elise, your unpaid planner and forever sister. I thought it was funny back then. That was nearly 11 months ago, on a Thursday morning in February, before the daffodils bloomed. Before she stopped calling me sis in front of people. Before the RSVP list grew without me on it. Her name is Ava. Younger by 3 years, bolder by 10. She always had this way of walking into a room like it owed her light. And me? I stayed in the corners, adjusting centerpieces, fixing straps, making sure no one noticed the flaws. When she got engaged, she screamed down the hallway of our childhood home. I was home for the weekend. Dad wasn't. Mom cried. Ava waved her hand around like it was a lottery ticket. He hadn't even proposed. With a ring she liked. She made him exchange it the next day. Still, I smiled. I offered to help with everything. I offered too much, if I'm being honest. It started small. Pinterest boards. Font pairings. I stayed up late comparing shades of ivory to eggshell, like it was sacred. I memorized venue capacities. I emailed florists in her name. I stood in long lines at bridal expos, alone, so she didn't have to miss her yoga classes. When I pointed out she hadn't thanked me in a while, she laughed and said, "Why would I thank you? You love this kind of thing." She wasn't wrong. I did love it. But I didn't love feeling like a tool she only took out when something needed fixing. By summer, I knew the entire seating chart by heart. I knew Uncle Greg couldn't sit next to Aunt Marie because of something that happened in '92. I knew her best friend Claire wanted to give a speech and her fiancé didn't want a microphone. I handled it all. Quietly. Carefully. Like a ghost in heels. I never asked for credit. I never asked for a thank you speech. I just wanted to feel like I belonged there. Like I wasn't just useful. I was wanted. I remember the day I found out. I wasn't on the final guest list. It was a mistake at first. Or so I thought. Her fiancé, Blake, had left his iPad unlocked in the kitchen while I was finishing up a mock-up for the table runners. The spreadsheet was open. I wasn't snooping. Scrolled. My name wasn't there, not as a guest, not even under staff. At first, I thought maybe it was a draft. I waited for Ava to clarify. She didn't. The next morning, she brought up budget constraints. Then something about wanting a tighter circle. I was too stunned to ask who the circle included. But I saw her college roommate's name on that list, the one who once spilled red wine on my favorite blouse and laughed about it. There was no apology. No awkward laugh. No, "I can't believe I forgot to add you." Just silence. Then came the kicker. "Honestly, Elise, you're more of a behind-the-scenes kind of person, right?" I smiled. Not because I agreed, but because the truth had settled in my stomach like a stone. They'd planned to erase me gently. Not brutally, just quietly. And quietly, I began planning something else. Not loud. Not angry. Just precise. Because when you've built every corner of a celebration, you also know exactly where it begins to fall apart. I didn't say anything the day I saw the guest list. Not when Ava asked me to check her hair in the bathroom mirror. Not when she made me retake her ring selfie 3 times at golden hour. Not even when she texted me later that night to finalize the catering order. Like she hadn't just quietly erased me from the entire day. I kept answering. Kept sending drafts. kept smiling through phone calls that left dents in my heart. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me still hoped she'd notice. The thing about being invisible is that it doesn't happen all at once. It starts with small things, being talked over, being introduced as the helper, being the only one cleaning up after dinner. By the time you realize you've disappeared, they've already filled your space with someone louder, shinier, easier to like. I thought maybe she would come to me, apologize, say it was a mistake. But all she ever said was, "Can you make sure the bridal party timeline is finalized? Blake wants to do a toast early." That's what I had become, the scheduler, the decorator, the facilitator of a life I wasn't invited into. One night in early September, I stayed late at the venue, alone. I had offered to walk through final layouts with the site coordinator, and Ava said she was exhausted from cake tasting. I didn't argue. I never do. The ballroom was hollow, half lit by dusty chandeliers, floor scattered with folding chairs and silk samples. And standing there, looking at the place where her wedding would happen, the one I curated, piece by piece, I realized something. This wasn't my role anymore, not sister, not guest, not even staff. I was a prop. And even props don't get seating cards. So I stopped answering. Not all at once. First, I ignored a few texts. Then I marked an email as unread. I skipped one Zoom call with the photographer. She didn't even notice. Or, if she did, she didn't say anything. The world kept spinning without me in it. 3 days later, she sent me a Venmo request, $86.75, custom signage printouts. I stared at it for a long time, longer than I'd care to admit. And then I didn't decline, I didn't pay. I didn't reply at all. I just scrolled back through the months. The receipts, the Uber rides, the fabric swatches I bought on my own card, the monogrammed candles, the calligraphy workshop, the bridesmaid dress I wasn't even going to wear. No, thank you. No mention. No invite. That night, I opened a folder on my laptop called Wedding Files, and I started renaming everything. Final Guest List.xlsx became Removed People.xlsx. Ava Seating Chart Tower V3 became Where I Used to Sit.png. Vendor Master Contacts. Became Ghost Work Docs. I didn't delete anything. That would be too clean, too kind. Instead, I did what they never expected me to do. Nothing. I just stopped. And in that silence, I finally started hearing my own voice again. The day of her final dress fitting, she texted me 5 times. "Are you still coming? Need you to bring the clips. Don't forget the backup heels I left in your car. Elise? Don't make this about you." I never replied. The shoes stayed in my trunk. The clips stayed in the basket on my dresser, and I stayed home, quietly folding laundry, listening to the sound of my own breathing, which, for once, didn't feel like a background track to someone else's life. By then, I think Ava realized that I wasn't answering out of forgetfulness. I was choosing not to show up. The irony didn't miss me. All these years, I'd been showing up without invitation. Now that I was finally invited, even if just for a fitting, I decided to stay out of frame. I thought about what silence meant to people like her. To someone who thrives in the center of every room, what does it feel like when someone steps back, not in sadness, but in refusal, not slamming the door, just quietly, slowly, closing it? Ava called Mom that evening. I heard her voice through the wall, pacing our hallway. She's being sensitive again. She's overreacting. She always does this. I can't deal with her drama right now. I was in the guest room. The same room I'd helped redecorate for her bridal suite photos. The one with the soft white curtains and the vintage vanity I found on Craigslist and sanded down by hand. It still smelled faintly of the lavender sachets I'd tucked into the drawers. She didn't knock. Didn't come in. Didn't ask me directly what was wrong. She just let the silence thicken between us, like fog over a field she never planned to walk through again. The next morning, she left an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was an RSVP card. Blank. No note. No handwriting. Just that smooth cardstock with gold lettering I'd designed 6 months earlier. I turned it over in my hand. It didn't sting the way I expected. It just felt weightless, like something that used to matter. I placed it back, on the counter, unopened. Then I took the white binder from under my bed, the master wedding folder. It held everything: venue contacts, catering notes, guest allergies, timelines, budget logs, vendor discounts I'd negotiated on her behalf. All organized in neat plastic sleeves. I laid it on her side of the bed. No drama, no ripped pages, just all the work, returned to its rightful owner. She texted me later. "Wow, so you're done now?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't done. Was just no longer available. And maybe for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about that. The morning after I gave back the binder, I woke up to silence. Not passive silence. The kind that lingers after a slammed door. This one was hollow, polished, and curated. She had taken the binder. She had not left to thank you. She had not said a word. Instead, there was a group chat, Ava and bridesmaids. Someone had added me back. I stared at the screen. "Elise won't be attending the wedding," Ava had written, "but let's still make her feel included. She did so much behind the scenes." My chest didn't rise for a full breath. Included. Like a recipe card slipped into a box and never actually cooked from. A few minutes later, one of the bridesmaids, Tasha, sent a video. It was a time-lapse of the seating chart I'd hand-drawn in ink, being rewritten with gold marker. They moved me out of the family section. Someone even joked, "Maybe she can sit with the vendors." And Ava replied, "Ha ha ha, stop. She's not coming." That was the first time I let myself cry. Not a sharp, painful sob. Just a slow, warm letting go. The kind of grief that leaks through your eyes when you're washing dishes and can't tell if it's the soap or sorrow. I walked to the closet and pulled down the shoebox. The one where I kept all the receipts, every printed invoice, every swatch sample, every train ticket to venues I visited for her. I sat on the floor with it between my legs like an altar. I didn't rage. I didn't shred it. I scanned each item slowly, like reading my own obituary written in expenses. $42 for save-the-date samples. $19.99 for the calligraphy pen she never used. $230 for hotel bookings I made for her out-of-town guests, before she got a wedding coordinator to take credit. None of it felt bitter. Just strange, like looking through a stranger's diary and realizing your handwriting is on every page. That night, I posted 3 things on my Instagram story. No captions. A photo of my hands, stained slightly with ink and glue, still from making her favor tags a screenshot of her Venmo request. And finally, a close-up of the RSVP card, blank, sitting in a trash bin lined with gold foil tissue paper. Didn't tag anyone. I didn't add music. I didn't even check who viewed it. But I knew she saw it. Because 3 hours later, I got this message. Wow. Petty much? After everything I let you do? You're lucky I even asked you to help. Let me. As if the endless hours I gave were a privilege, like borrowing her earrings. I locked my phone, set it face down. I sat there in the dark, and for the first time in our entire lives, I felt something new bloom in my chest. Indifference, not anger. Not grief, not heartbreak. Just a still, cold calm. The kind of calm that shows up right before a quiet refusal begins to ripple. The kind of calm that plans nothing and lets everything fall. I didn't go to the rehearsal dinner. Not because I had other plans. I simply didn't need to explain myself anymore. The invitation was never extended to me anyway, not in words. But there were moments where she'd hint, as if dangling a rope for me to climb back up. You could still come. It's not like anyone's stopping you. It'd be weird without you there. But do what you want. That was her trick. Always making it sound like I was the one leaving. As if the erasure hadn't already happened in spreadsheets and seating charts long before I ever stepped back. The morning of the rehearsal, I made coffee slowly. No rush, no to-do list, no texts to answer. The group chat had gone quiet on me. They'd moved on to last-minute photo ideas and playlist adjustments. Watched the sun hit the rim of my mug like a blessing. In another life, I'd be steaming dresses and fixing timelines. In this one, I was free. That afternoon, I got a message from the florist. She wasn't trying to reach me, not intentionally. She must have hit the wrong thread. Just confirming. Delivery window with Elise for tomorrow. I stared at it. I had coordinated all the vendor schedules. My name was still on everything. Not Ava's, not Blake's. Mine. And that's when I remembered. The passwords. The invoice portals. The confirmation emails. The wedding website. They were all mine. She never once asked to take over. She never thought she'd need to. For 2 hours, I sat with that power. I didn't cancel anything. I didn't sabotage. But I did log in. Quietly. And I clicked one thing. The guest list view access. I removed her wedding planner's email. No alert, no warning. Just a silent lockout. One click, the same way they clicked my name off the guest list. That night, Blake called me. I let it ring. Then he left a voicemail. Hey, Elise. Ava's a little stressed. The coordinator says she can't access anything. Could you, help? No mention of what she said. No mention of the fact that I'd been iced out and insulted. Just, could you help? Like always. I listened to the voicemail twice. Then I forwarded it to myself. Saved it. Didn't delete it. I'm not sure why. Maybe to remember how they always came back when something broke. But not once to say they were sorry. At 9:43 p.m., Ava finally messaged. I know you're mad, but this is my wedding, Elise. It's not about you. Stop making it messy now. Please. There it was again, the careful framing. I wasn't hurt. I was messy. I wasn't erased. I was dramatic. I didn't reply. Instead, I took out a blank sheet of paper and started writing down numbers. Florist, caterer, rentals, DJ. Photographer, each one, I had the contact. Each one, I had coordinated. And beside each, I wrote a simple note. She will not thank you. It wasn't meant for them. It was for me. To remember that sometimes the best closure is knowing they needed you more than they ever admitted. The morning of the wedding, the sky was overcast. Not rain. Just that heavy gray quiet that sits on your windows like a held breath. I opened the curtain just slightly, let the light fall across the hardwood floor. And I stood there barefoot, coffee in hand, while somewhere across town, someone was steaming her veil. The timeline I wrote had the bridal prep starting at 8:15, hair at 8:30, florals arriving at 9:00, photographer by 9:45. I knew it all. I'd carved it from my own time, threaded it from the fraying hem of my patience. And still, not one message, no apology, no thank you, just silence. At 9:17, a call came in from an unknown number. I let it ring once, then flipped the phone over. At 10:18, a text followed. "Hi, this is Kendra with Peony and Pine Florals. We're outside, but no one is answering the door. Elise, can you advise?" I didn't reply. Another message came in, this time from Blake. "Hey, not sure if you're seeing this, but the florist is locked out. The coordinator's missing some files too. Can you just—" That was all I read. I deleted it mid-sentence. I pulled the wedding folder back out. Not the binder, but the digital one. The master doc that held all access links. It was still, in my Dropbox, untouched. For a moment, I hovered over the share button, not to send, to unshare, not to hurt, to reclaim. One by one, I removed names from the access list. Her name, his name, the planner, the photographer. Not to destroy the wedding. I didn't want to see it fall. I just didn't want to hold it up anymore. It wasn't revenge. It was release. Because somewhere along the way, I had built a day they could stand on, and then quietly left me buried beneath it. I was never the guest. Just the foundation, and now I was letting them feel the wobble. At 10:12, Ava finally called. I watched her name light up my screen. Ava Bride Mode. Still saved that way in my phone. A joke she made when she got engaged, that she'd be bride mode until the honeymoon. It rang, and rang, then silence. No voicemail. She knew I wouldn't listen. Instead, I opened my email, typed a message to the venue. "Hello? Just to note, I am no longer the point of contact for the Jameson Moore wedding. Kindly direct future communication to the bride directly. I am stepping back. Best, Elise. No venom. No rage. Just the truth. Placed gently like china." That afternoon I went for a walk. Down the block, past the school, to the park with the bench, under the birch tree. I sat there while the wind moved through the leaves like soft applause. Not for them, for me, for choosing myself. In quiet ways no one would post about. For not showing up where I wasn't wanted. For finally letting the silence speak for me. The wedding happened without me. I know this. Not because anyone told me, but because the silence was too sharp that day. No texts, no missed calls, not even a passive-aggressive update from Mom asking why I hadn't at least shown up for the photos. I spent most of the day in the laundromat down the street, folding warm towels, watching strangers argue about quarters and dryer sheets. There was something oddly sacred about it. Sitting alone among the hum of spinning machines, while somewhere across town, someone else tried to choreograph their perfect day. The funny thing is, I wasn't even angry anymore. I wasn't anything, just still. Like the dust that settles after furniture is moved. At 4:12 p.m., I opened Instagram, not to look, just to observe. Hashtags were already rolling in. More ever after. Jameson Bride, Wamar Avon Blake's AI, they looked like ads, perfectly filtered smiles. Lavender fields. Her dress, the one I picked with her, glinting in the sun like a promise I was never part of. But I knew the cracks beneath the gold, the late invoice from the DJ, the missing cocktail hour playlist, the vendor who texted me, not her, for directions. I knew how many pieces were patched together with my hands, so I didn't feel jealousy, only distance, like watching a play where I once held the script and chose at the last moment to step off stage. 2 days later, she posted the album. 47 photos, not one included me. No caption about who helped plan it. No mention of the months I carried behind her smile. But I did notice one thing. The last photo, a wide shot of the reception hall. Candles, tables, her friends laughing. At the edge, slightly blurred, was the signage I had hand-lettered. Still there. Still standing. I stared at it for a long time. Not because it made me sad, but because it reminded me, even if they forget you, pieces of you remain. Even in the corners. Even in the blurred edges. 3 days after the wedding, she messaged a single line. Are you seriously never going to talk to me again? No apology. No recognition. Just entitlement dressed up as confusion. I didn't answer. I didn't block her either. I just let the message sit there, unread. Because sometimes not responding is the most honest thing you can do. That night, I lit a candle. Not out of grief, but out of quiet. The kind of quiet you grow into when you realize the peace of not being needed anymore. I thought about all the stories I had swallowed over the years, the birthdays I made magical for everyone else, the holidays I spent behind, the camera, the hours I gave freely, like they were nothing. And I thought, maybe this was the first chapter of a different life. One that didn't orbit someone else's spotlight. Weeks passed. The wedding faded from people's stories. Photos stopped surfacing. The hashtags quieted down like dust settling in a sunbeam. People moved on, faster than I thought they would, and so did I. Not in a grand movie-ending sort of way. No dramatic haircut, no spontaneous trip, just a long exhale I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. Ava sent one more message. So this is how it ends? After everything? I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I no longer needed to explain why silence was the only way I knew how to survive in our family. Some things don't end in explosions. They just lose their shape, and you stop trying to hold them together. I found the RSVP card again one morning, tucked in the bottom of my bookshelf. Still blank. Still gold embossed. I placed it in a photo frame, but not for nostalgia. More like a reminder of the things I built, of the seats I never begged for, of the moments when stepping back gave me more than showing up ever did. Mom eventually asked if we were still not speaking. I just said, "There's nothing left to talk about." She sighed like I'd disappointed her. But I didn't flinch, because I'd finally stopped performing for people who only clapped when it was convenient. Last week, I walked past a wedding boutique downtown. In the display window, they had a gold-foiled sign, almost identical to the one I made for Ava's reception. But this one said, "We remember who helped us bloom." I stood there for a long time, not out of bitterness, out of recognition, that I will never again mistake being useful for being loved. These days, my silence is no longer a wound. It's a boundary. It's peace. It's a soft, deliberate goodbye to a family dynamic that thrived on my effort and shrank in the absence of it. I didn't burn the house down. I just walked out of the room and turned off the light.